Welcome to the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel, and together we'll be chatting with everyday people living extraordinary lives. So they've learned how to activate their potential and are helping to illuminate others. So I hope you will join me in listening to their journey. And if you like what you hear, and I think you will, I'd love for you to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family. The world could use a lot more activation and illumination. Well, today you guys have a real treat. We have Paul Brooks from Minnesota here to speak to us a little. And honestly, this is going to challenge some of the ways that we've thought about financial instruments, some of the ways that we've thought about financial systems, and maybe how we can participate in this world a little differently. So Paul, just a 100-foot overview here. He went from the financial banking sector to providing 0% loans for sustainable regenerative farmers. So how did he do that? Well, he wanted deeper meaning in his life. He wanted to start exploring sacred economics. He started delving into regenerative farming and ecosystems that foster community resilience. So we chat about how to be in alignment with systems that support life instead of destroying it. We chat about judgment and lack of understanding. Now, I will tell you that we all have it. True wealth being in relationships and not in money. We explore how the current financial system degrades life rather than supporting it. And you will likely leave this interview questioning yourself about areas that you haven't questioned before. So Paul, and through this discussion with him, he allows us to put the sacred connection back into the everyday. Join us. You will not be disappointed. You have the most amazing heart. I think it was your heart that I heard first when we first met at an event a few months ago. So we met in an event that had some pretty fascinating concepts. And the whole concept of that event was rebirthing and regeneration of a new humanity. And I know I was there initially because I had been listening to Zach Bush, and he just fascinated me. And I know there was another speaker there, Charles Eisenstein. Am I saying his name right?
Yep.
Yeah. That you had followed a lot. And when we met and you had told me that you had driven from Minnesota to British Columbia, it took you quite a few days to get there. I was just fascinated by the fact that that you were so driven and so compelled to come from across the countries. But then we started talking and I realized, wow, like when you told me what you did and the system that you were in and how you got out of it, honestly, I had goosebumps for so long. So maybe if you're able to, Paul, to give us a little bit of your backstory about the world that you came from and what you're doing now, because honestly, it fascinates me. And I think people, when you share what you have done, this is my hope, is that it will give people permission to do what's in their heart. Because when I heard you talk about what you had done that was in your heart, I was so in amazement of just the shift in polarities. Tell us a little bit about your story, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I was originally, like we talked about, just kind of feeling into where to start, but because what drew me to that event in British Columbia was multiple factors. It was partly because Charles Eisenstein was speaking there, but also he had written a little piece where he said, he had canceled all of his speaking engagements for the whole rest of the year, except that one. He said it was too juicy to resist, so he was going to do this, and he just felt like this is the place where it was going to happen. And I have been following Charles for maybe 10 years, and I've never seen him speak. And I've contemplated going to different things, but never did, just never felt that. And as soon as I read that, I knew I was going. Because as soon as I read that, I went and looked it up and saw that it was in British Columbia. And as soon as I saw that it was there, I knew I was going. Because British Columbia is special to me because my aunt lived there. I have ties to Canada. I have dual citizenship. My mom's Canadian and my dad was American, but my mom's lived here my whole life, but she's never given up her Canadian citizenship. So my tie to Canada, which I feel very strong tie, is very strong in British Columbia. So I wanted to go there. And I had been there before, and we can come back to that if we want to, but I had done a trip out there before, the same kind of thing, following the same thing inside before I'd even left my job at the big bank. Anyway, I had been at a big bank. I'd worked in corporate America for 20 years. The last 12 years was in investments. I had found what I thought was the dream job that I really wanted, and it turned out to be not that. And that was a catalyst. Not getting the job that I really wanted was a real catalyst into what did I want? What did I really want? This isn't it. This isn't it. And so I was started down what I did was we invested in institutional pools of money. So that's what it was. The last 12 years was working in an area that managed money for institutional pools. So like big pension plans or foundations or endowments, we would manage their money. Many, many changes were happening at that time for me as I'm kind of searching. I'm kind of searching for what I want and what feels right, and impact investing or socially responsible investing, it kind of started to feel right, and then it didn't feel right. And everything was not really enough. And I started to see that basically how I looked at it was that I was seeing this vision of basically investing in my own suicide. I'm investing in the thing that is marching us off of a cliff. So that's part of all the changes that were happening. But one of the big changes, like I was telling you, was that I came upon the name Sacred Economics and the name Charles Eisenstein, that there was a book called Sacred Economics. And once I saw that, it was like a recognition in my soul that everything in my heart actually is possible. It's possible. It says it right here. Sacred Economics. Economics can be sacred. And I went out and watched a video of Charles speaking about sacred economics, and I was just hooked. So I read this extremely dense book called Sacred Economics, and even though I didn't intellectually, I couldn't understand maybe 50% of this book, it was so depthful and so beyond my understanding of economics and all of how things work. But I could feel the book. It's hard to explain that, but I could feel this book. This book was, the words were penetrating me like poetry or like music. It just went right to my soul. It was like a song. Or maybe it lit the song inside of me, but it was just so beautiful. At one point, I remember realizing that, oh my God, every single word is the exact right word that fits into the exact right sentence, that fits into the exact right paragraph. This book is that beautiful. Every single word is the perfect word. And it just lit me. It just lit me. Like I said, I read this book, and I literally am reading an economics book, and I'm weeping. I'm like crying. It hits me so profoundly. And later I would describe it as basically connecting my heart and my mind. It's like he connected those two. It was like explaining to my mind what my heart already knew was possible. And one of the quotes that I came upon when I read that book, Sacred Economics, was so powerful to me that I took that quote, wrote it down on a Post-it note, and put it on my computer where it remained for the rest of the time that I worked there. And I'll read you this quote. It says, "Right investment is to array money in sacred vestments to use it to create, protect, and sustain the things that are becoming sacred to us today. I would call that like my investment policy statement. That's the thing that's what encapsulated what I wanted to invest in. This is the standard. This is what I want to invest in. It's not socially responsible. It's not impact. It's this. It's sacred investments. So, over the course of time, I guess the first step that I was brave enough to take was to take all of my investments that were in my retirement account and sell them all. Just go to cash. I didn't want to do any more harm. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be a part of it anymore. So, okay, I went to cash, sold everything, which goes against every bit of, training, like you gotta be making money on your money. You gotta be making way more than inflation. You gotta da 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 da. I'm not going to participate in that anymore. So the first step was to leave the market, I guess you would say. And then the second step was to figure out, how do I invest in this, what I'm talking about? How do I invest in something sacred to me? I know it's local. I know that for sure. So if I even know that, then the first step is I have to get my money in my own control. So like I told you, somewhere in this whole time, I made a promise to myself that I would leave my job, that I would stop doing this to myself, get myself out of a cubicle by the time I was 50. I promised that by my 50th birthday, I won't be here anymore. Job. And so, as it turned out, my last day at the big bank was May 17th of 2019. And I turned 50 the next day, May 18th. And I was volunteering on a farm. My very first day of no longer having that job. So then from there, it's been learning. It's like, so there's a whole group of people called the Next Egg. That's a group of people that I joined that really helped me figure out how to take my retirement money and get it into my own name. Checkbook control that I could do with, I could invest it how I wanted to, so that I could invest it locally, so I could invest it into sacred investments. I have to have control of it because there's no possible way to do that in the current market. There's no way to do it. So this group really helped me figured out how to set up a solo 401k plan. The group is called the Next Egg.
Next Egg.
Yep.
Okay.
The Next Egg. Yep. It's just a group of people around the country. It would be worth looking up. The wonderful people that helped me do that. So they figured out together how to set up a solo 401k, how to take that paperwork to a bank that would actually administer it, so I do have both of those. Both of those are located in Colorado. If I could do it here, I would, but that wasn't available. And so I have checkbook control over my retirement money, and I've taken that and invested almost all of it into regenerative farmers at 0%. That was the other thing that was sacred economics inspired in me, is the understanding that money might not be the root of all evil. Usury is. It's the interest on money. So he explains in Sacred Economics how we're in this, basically a game of musical chairs, that it's mathematically impossible for everybody to get a chair. So there's always, as he explains, that money is created through debt in our system. So a bank gets just to simplify it, a bank, like we get a mortgage. I want to buy a $200,000 house. I go to the bank. Bank gives me a loan for $250,000. When they give me that loan for $250,000, that's the creation of money. So, but as you see, they created for $250,000, and I bought a $200,000 house. That 50 is interest. There's always, always, always more debt than money in our system. That puts us into a game of musical chairs that it's mathematically impossible for everybody to have a chair. It's mathematically impossible for everybody to be able to pay their debt.
It's funny, you're talking about this system. I remember quite a long time reading Creature from Jekyll Island. C. Edward Griffin's is basically talking about let's call it the bastardization of the economic system and how it basically came to pass and how we have this usurious system and how it was hijacked. But I knew that it was not good and I knew that it had been hijacked, but I didn't know what to do about it, right? And you're talking here about some tools and some techniques and some things. It for people that might not understand sacred economics, explain in a few sentences what that really means.
Well, I would say the sacred economics is economics that aligns with life. So instead of the system that we're in, obviously right now, is the opposite of aligning with life. I would say sacred economics is about balance too, the balance of giving and receiving. So in a sacred economy, those are balanced and it aligns with nature. It aligns with life. So to me, interest is the thing when it's attached to money that drives it toward. It's like, like our current money system, money isn't neutral. It's slanted toward degradation, destruction, and death. So to me, taking the interest off is what frees the money.
So is there any, sorry.
Also, just like the key component of sacred economics would be a gift economy. It's a gift. It's the spirit of the gift. We would be in a gift economy. So I ultimately see a sacred economy as the gift economy of the more beautiful world our hearts know as possible, which is another book that Charles wrote.
I haven't read it.
Helps. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there any part of our current system that you think if people, are investing in or have stuff in our current system, is there any part of it that, does create, like being from where the position that you had and being part of that? Is there any part of it that they can participate in that does that? Or do you have to take your money out of the system for it not to be in a usurious system?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think you have to take it out. I don't want to condemn that either or pretend that I know because I don't know. I believe that maybe there's a way that people can still invest with their heart in the current system. Just for me, I have to have it outside of the system because the system itself is degrading. It's destructive. So any money whatsoever in the system is aligned with that. So I have to get it out of the system in order to align it with life. I want to align it with life. I want to align money with life. And so if we think about that in just like simpler terms, like, well, I have life. I'm life. I have life inside of me. So I can align it with life. Just by trusting my heart. So whatever my heart is moving me toward, whatever that excitement is moving me toward, let's put it into that because that's aligning with life. So I love how
you talk about regenerative farming and how regenerative farming is life. Can you share that example that you have shared with me, Paul, about the children participating in examples of farming and just what the differences that they felt?
Yeah. Yeah. The example I shared with you was, of all the investments that I've done, which I feel very proud of, there are a variety of investments that are everything from full-blown regenerative farmers to friends that have became friends that were working on regenerative farms that have no land and have horrible credit and have had a car loan because they have to have a car to get to work. And because they don't have good credit, they're just getting absolutely thrashed, super high interest. They have to pay extra for the car in the first place. So I gave them a car loan so that they could pay off that horrible, horrible payday type loan. And I would give them a loan to pay their car off with no interest. So everything from those two people who have no land to full-blown regenerative farmers, I've done. And so all of it aligns to me with my heart. So I'm proud of the investments. But the one I'm most proud of is investment with New Story Farm. And New Story Farm is a farm that's in Hutchinson, Minnesota. It's close to me. They are full-blown regenerative farmers. They view their farm as an ecosystem, and that they are restoring an ecosystem. That is their goal. That is their mission. They are restoring that local ecosystem, that specific ecosystem, and taking the food that comes as a byproduct of that restoration. And they eat maybe 85% of their calories all year. They've grown themselves. I mean, they're the true homesteaders. They're growing a heritage wheat. They mill their own wheat, make their own bread, make their own pasta, make their own medicine. They are just fascinating people. Part of what they do besides all of that is they teach a resiliency school to children. So they give free schooling to children that are homeschooled. Anybody that homeschools can bring their children out there twice a week for free. One of the things that they do with these children is they set them in their field. They walk them out to the prairie, maybe with the cows, maybe not. And they just sit them in the field, these children, and they say, just sit here for a while and tell us what you feel and what you hear and what you see. Just be here for a while. And then once they do, they'll move them 20 yards to their neighbor's property, which is none of the neighbors are farming regeneratively. They're all farming industrially. And they'll sit them in that field that's 20 yards away. And they'll just ask them the same thing. Just tell us what you see, what you feel, what you think. And sometimes those kids will cry. They'll just break down and cry. Because they feel the loss of life that is so obvious 20 yards away. 20 yards away, one field is just bustling with life. It's all the, variety of prairie grasses, maybe 40, 50 different prairie grasses and insects and birds and, forest, trees. And then the neighbor next door is monocropping corn or soybeans. And there's no cover on the soil, and there's no life. There's no life in that soil, or little or no life. So I see children in that instance as being able to feel something that we're a little bit detached from. We've been conditioned out of that feeling that they are not conditioned out of. And they're telling us something. So that's what regenerative agriculture is, bringing life to the soil. As Charles says, this is a mantra that I got from Charles that I say in my most lost times. If I say these mantras to myself, they'll bring me back. I am life, here to serve life. I know how to serve life. When I say those words, I know. I do know how to serve life. We all do. We are all life, here to serve life. And we know how to serve life.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, sometimes I would say that to myself, and it'd be a vision of just bringing my daughter a snack, bringing my daughter food that I know that she loves, even if it's not healthy. It's that something inside knows how to serve life. I know how to serve life.
Yeah.
So life creates the conditions for life. That's what regenerative farming is doing, adding life to the soil. Life knows what to do. To keep learning and doing whatever we can to add life to the soil. Regenerative farming is about a reciprocity. It is about a new relationship with the earth. It is about giving and receiving. not just receiving, but giving too.
When I think about our school system, and I've just been sitting here thinking, how you talk about what we've been conditioned to think about the financial world. And then I think about what we've been conditioned to think about in our schooling world. And, I was one that at different times I thought about homeschooling my children, but I'll be honest, I was just a little too selfish in the moment. Like I had 3 kids in 3 years and I couldn't handle the thought of doing it with my husband working away. But I was sending them to school for a break, to be honest with you. But knowing what I know now, I see so many people switching from our set model of education to alternative models, even if they're maybe a little bit alternative within the current system, but recognizing that so many people think differently and just, these values that you talk about, these values of life, I don't actually think are in our current school education system. So for me, when I hear you speak about the way that you are thinking and aligning with your heart, it just gives me such hope for our education system that at some point we would have an education system that would be allowing our children to align with their heart from a larger setting other than people pulling their kids out of it and having to do it from home. Even though I think that that's great for most people that choose that. But yeah, the changes over the last few years that you've seen, do you think we're moving towards something like that?
Yeah, I think that we are moving toward all of that, that all of that will be, that we will have an education system that aligns with what a new human is, what a human actually is, life. Like that we're here for a purpose, that we're here for a specific purpose, like everything, like all the beings here. We're here for a specific purpose. We're here to add to life and beauty here on earth. We have a specific part of that. And so, someday I didn't raise my kids like that either, man. Oh my God. She's like, my gosh, I look back and think, I'll tell you how we raised our kids is like, I went to public school and private school as a kid. I went to public school and then I got into so much trouble that I got thrown out of that and directed into a private school in my hometown. And I came out of the whole experience thinking that the private school was better, like that. I thought I'm going to get my kids into private school because Jesus, man, I had a hard time in college. I feel like if I got them into a Catholic school or a good private school, I'm not Catholic, but I have all kinds of things to say about that, but I won't. But I just thought, man, not only will the college will be easier for them, but they'll also be around people that are probably coming from families that probably have some level of success. So that'll probably be the people you'll be working for, and you'll be friends with them. Instead of trying to figure out how to relate to them, you'll be friends with them. This was my thinking. So I talked to Nikki, and when we got married and we moved into my house with her kids, we got them into the private school that was near us, that was known as a really good feeder school for a really good high school that's here. And I just thought that was the best thing for them. And they both still really loved that they went to that school. But in me, I'm thinking, gosh, school is just a conditioning agent. That's what school, I've started to realize that school's just a conditioning agent, man. And the private school is just better at it. Really just actually made it worse. I've actually made it worse, thinking I made it better. I'm very hopeful that someday we would be able to raise our kids in a way that they were free, that they weren't in these institutions that are basically like jail, Like, I don't want to send my kids to prison. I would like to send them to a place where they could come alive, where they could follow their own guidance, where we could start to say that, man, we all have a guidance inside. You could say that about me. I'm following a certain guidance all the way through that takes me into corporate America, takes me into all of the things that I did. And that compass, that guidance is the thing that's conditioned into me that tells me that this is the way. You got to go make a living. You got to get good grades. You got to try your ass off in school. You got to work your tail off, and you got to rise up and make more money. And then when I left Wells Fargo, or the big bank, I should say, when I left, there's a new compass that comes on. There's a new compass. That compass is excitement, is joy. It's following that guidance inside. That takes a while. And I'm still in that process of trusting that guidance versus this conditioned guidance.
Because it's completely backwards, isn't it? It feels like to me, but in what you're saying, that we have been purposely conditioned to have our heart go offline.
Yeah. Yeah. Like think of investments. That's the world I came from. The proudest thing that people say to people is that, well, I don't have any emotion. The reason you can't invest for yourself, Miss Joe Blow or Mr. Joe Blow, is because you don't want to have any emotion tied into your investment. And I can invest emotionless. No matter what you are taught, no matter what, do not use your heart in money. I mean, that's the opposite. You should only use your rational mind. And I would say that it's the exact opposite. I would say trust your heart. So basically just raising kids to be themselves. That's what I would love to see, is what I hear you saying. What you would like to see in the education system would be an education system that acknowledges that, that's what I keep telling myself about my kids. My kids are also souls that have come here for a reason. So if I could just trust that, then I don't have to get down on their choices to go to college or the mainstream or whatever. I'm just going to keep on loving them and keep on trusting that they have their guidance inside them too. And I just want to encourage that.
That's beautiful, Paul.
It's a learning process, or as Charles would say, an unlearning process.
Yeah.
And then a learning process. It's unlearning all of this dogma and all of this, like just even the journey that I've been on. I mean, the beginning of this, I don't think there's probably most people that knew me would say that that's not only crazy, you're a little wacky, the way you're talking so radical is a little wacky. You're irresponsible. You're being irresponsible to take your money, and how are you ever going to retire? To take this little pot of money and sell it out of the market and make no money on your money? That's irresponsible.
Yeah. Unless COVID happened a few months later.
It's irresponsible to leave that job, right? But I would view that oppositely. I would say it's more responsible. I would say I'm taking more personal responsibility by doing what I want to do. To do what I want to do is to take ultimate responsibility for my own life. Like what I've come to think of as sovereignty, or this is what it's reminding me of. Sovereignty, like how would I define what sovereignty is? And I think of it as like being self-determined and self-sufficient, but as a group, as a community, like that we're truly free. And then I remember Charles defining sovereignty as, who am I to be? And then I heard through his words, a person that he was quoting was Orland Bishop. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. I've read just little bits of his. Mostly I know things that he said through Charles Eisenstein, because he's a mentor of Charles. But he said, and I believe this was the definition of sovereignty, but he said, who do I have to be for you to be free? And I know that that's what sovereignty is. Who do I have to be for you to be free? And it's the same answer as when you and I are face to face and we're at that event, And I'm saying to you, and you're saying to me, but I'm saying to you, I will do my best to not judge you. And when I say that, I mean that to you, I mean it to myself, and I mean it to everybody. I know that's what I'm going to work on. I know that's what I'm going to be working on. And those two are the same answer. Who do I have to be for you to be free? And I will do my best to not judge you. That's the answer. In order for you to be free, I got to let go of my judgments. In order for myself to be free, let go. And those judgments are definitely conditioned. And the since we've made that commitment, I see my judgments way more. Oh, just way more aware of the judgments that boom, 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 boom.
That was a powerful exercise.
Wasn't it?
Powerful
Very,
exercise.
probably the most powerful, one of the most powerful parts for me of that whole event. That's what I walked away with.
Even as you were talking about how you parent your children and just like, the way to relate to our children so that they can make because we, as parents, we have these ideas of, what our children are going to be or do or have or this or that and how they should show up in the world and how to, guide them on the right path. What you said there about just, allowing your children to be who they are meant to be. And in lockstep with that statement that you just said there as who do I have to be so you can be free? I think that is such a powerful, powerful message of just how to be in this new humanity. I personally, I know that we've seen degradation of systems in all aspects: education, healthcare, housing, government, private, all things for the last while. And it's really been a eye-opening experience because I think it's I'm going to say that again, shone a spotlight on blaring discrepancies and blaring things that aren't working. But in this, if we could all just ask ourselves that question, who do I have to be so you can be free? We'd have a completely different world, wouldn't we?
Yeah, and it just is you can just feel the rightness of it. You can just feel that the truth of like judgment, like Charles says that what judgment is really saying, the essence of judgment is that I would do better than you if I was in your shoes.
Right?
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm better stuff.
Yeah.
Really. But it's not true.
Well, it's plausible.
It's just not true. I love that he just says it's just not true. It's just it's just inaccurate. It's not a moral thing. It's just inaccurate because the truth is that if I was in your shoes and in the totality of your experiences, I would do as you do, most likely. So I just try to keep reminding myself, he's the one, Charles Eisenstein, and his work is the one that challenges that part of me and just keeps that fresh, that knowing that's inaccurate. So that I try to practice that, like when I'm in the judgment. So another thing that he says that really resonates as true for me is that when I'm in judgment, it means that there's a deficit of understanding. And I know that's true because when I understand, there is no judgment. Like all of a sudden, when I understand a person, when I just understand where they're coming from, when I really just get it, when I listen to them and I understand, I don't have any judgment. It goes away. I had an example of that in my previous work experience where I working at that big corporation and there was a coworker that I don't know why, but couldn't stand this person. Just, my God, that person triggered so much anger in me and hatred, really. Just disgusted with this person, and we were really combative. It was not good. I mean, I would come home and rant about this person and just felt that, I just can't stand this person. One day we did some kind of work event where we did finding your strengths. We read this book about Strengths Finder. And then a person came in and did this like little class with our work group about Strengths Finder and just talked about everybody's different strengths and how they work together. And I can't explain it, but in that, this instantaneous understanding happened of this person. I instantly understood why the person was the way they were, and everything dissolved on the spot. I didn't have any more angst toward this person. We became good colleagues. I mean, he was the person that I went to ask questions and talk things through, real like things that I was struggling with, and I was that person for him. We became that way for the rest of the time together. So that's just an example of how I know that it's true. So I can come back to that, and I know it's true, even though I might be struggling to really get that or embody that, because I'm really pissed at this person, and I have all kinds of reasons why, I don't like what they're doing, or why I want to dehumanize the dehumanizer, or why I want to judge the judge. I don't want to judge the judge inside of me or outside of me. I don't want to judge the judge and keep it going.
Yeah. So question, you had this great career, or call it what you want, corporate. But to me, the epitome of success is what you're doing now. Do you feel that as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel that. I feel like, yeah, I would say like, yes, it's like I told my friends at New Story Farm, when I'm sitting there at their table and I'm eating this food with them, all this food that came from them, from their animals, and how they hold this, everything is sacred. I feel rich. I mean, I feel really rich. Or when I open my freezer and I have a freezer full of meat, all from farms that I know the farmer, and I know the animal, and I know where they were, and I know the life that they lived, I feel rich. Or when I get to pick up my 2 niece and nephew from school every day, I feel rich. Like rich. I have that time. I mean, how many of us feel that no sovereignty over our time? How many of us feel that way? How many of us are working every single day, best we can, doing the best we can, and just feel miserable? Feel like, is there ever an end to this? It's like awful, but it's given us the money that we need to survive, to pay the bills, to get our kids to school, to do the thing. You know what I mean? So
100%.
So it's just like we were saying before. It's like I feel richer, but that's hard to hold on to when you're dealing with that practical side that says, well, yeah, but how are you going to keep on? How are you going to stay in your house? How are you going to? So it is, to me, I agree 100%. I feel way richer now than I did 5 years ago. And it's not money. It's these relationships and this time. And ultimately, that's what we're gonna be, when we're on our deathbed. We're not gonna be sitting there wishing we had worked more. We're not gonna be thinking about that. We're gonna be thinking about everybody we loved.
And how well you loved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the part that makes you feel the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Paul, I feel like just, to share a little bit of your example of what you've been able to do with your life as an example. And I personally believe, like, when you talk about that, well, you haven't exactly said those words, but it's what I attribute it to when you said it, that energetic signature of what you have been able to create by helping these sustainable farmers, even if it was at 0% loans, that energetic signature of that creation going out into the world and people being able to eat more of that creation and to be able to produce more of that creation, that energetic signature of that sustainably regenerate, growing in a regenerative fashion, I think, has an interest rate on it that we can't see or appreciate. I don't want to say interest rate, but you understand what I'm saying. But let's put it to the good. That has created an energetics that is coming back tenfold to you for certain. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel extremely blessed to have met you. There's so many things that we could talk about, but I feel extremely blessed to have met you and just to be given an example of a new way of participating in this life that I hadn't really thought of before, to be honest with you. I'd heard the word sacred economics before, and I thought I understood maybe a little bit about it, but I don't think I really did. And perhaps I don't really still. But yeah, I just thank you for your example.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love talking to you about it. And, it really matters, like you're when you ask me about what I'm doing and you respond the way you do, it's like the place for me to share. So thank you.
Yeah,
you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I look forward to future conversations.
Likewise, I do as well.
Yeah, really fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, anytime, Paul. Thank you for being part of today's journey. If this episode sparks something in you, then please share it with others and anyone else who might need just to feel this light and this connection. So subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We'll be there. Till then, let's keep growing this community of radiant souls.